So the breed is a three-way composite, one of the American breeds. It was developed by my grandfather, his great-grandfather, Tom Lasater, in the 1930s. But the original work that went into it dates back to my great-grandfather. He was involved in one of the first importations of Bosindicus bulls from India and Brazil in the late 1800s, and began experimenting with crossbreeding those on the Herefords. All the cattle in South Texas at that time were Herefords. They had a lot of problems with not taking the heat, ice, beat, various things, not enough weight, and so they started crossing with the Bosindicus bulls and really liked the results. So when my grandfather took over in the 1930s, he continued with the two-way cross, a Bosindicus-Bostoris cross, the Herefords, and the three Bosindicus bulls used were Gyr and Guzarat from India and Nelore from Brazil. So a lot of people say that a Beefmaster is half Brahman, quarter Shorthorn, quarter Hereford, but it's actually half Bosindicus using those three breeds, which were some of the component breeds that also went into the American Brahman. So he added the Shorthorn along the way, and he immediately saw that the three-way cross was better. And so he crossed two F1s to arrive at the three-way cross, and he saw that three-way cross was by far better than the F1s that he'd been producing before. So he closed his herd to outside genetics in 1937, and it's remained closed to this day. It's thought to be the largest closed herd in the world.
I'm Lorenzo Lasater. I'm president of Isa Beefmasters. We're on a ranch we call Red Mill in Schleicher County, Texas, which is just outside of El Dorado, Texas. It's a 1,865-acre ranch set up in an intensive rotational grazing, running all registered spring calving Beefmaster females.
Beau Lasater, Vice President of Operations for Isa Beefmasters.
So I was born in Mexico. My sister and I were born in Mexico, and my parents moved to San Angelo in 1974 and formed Isa Beefmasters. And so we've been here since then, and then they retired in 2014, and my sister and I, if I said Isa Beefmasters, I meant to say Isa Cattle Company. And my sister and I in 2014, after my parents retired, formed a partnership, Isa Beefmasters, to carry on that business here in the San Angelo area. So he developed the six essentials of the Lasater philosophy in the 1930s as he developed the breed. And so my dad wrote a book about it in the 1960s, so it's about 50 years ago he wrote the book about the ideas and development of the breed, and we still sell 15 to 20 of those books every month. And I've always thought, well, anybody who was interested in these ideas along the way would have already gotten the book, or the ideas would have become outdated. And they're as true today as they were then, and it's such a complete and basic principle. So all of our cattle are managed and raised according to the six essentials, and I really think that's the thing that differentiates the Beefmaster breed from a lot of our competing breeds, is that economically driven management philosophy. So 6 economic traits. It's fertility, weight, disposition, milk production, conformation, and durability or hardiness. And so if you kind of think about those, his idea was if you push the management rate for any one of those, let's say weight or growth, there would be a cost somewhere else. So the whole idea is structured around balance of making a functional and efficient cow herd. And it's kind of interesting, there's been a renewal in interest in the idea of balance with the regenerative movement, all this thing. I mentioned the book and people buying it. Often the people that are drawn to these ideas from a cattle production standpoint are also interested in rotational grazing or regenerative grazing or these kinds of things. It's the same, a similar type of person that's looking for a better way to manage cattle on grass. And the industry in the U.S. has really been striated in the last 30 years, and particularly the northern United States has moved to a really heavily corn-based, farm-raised kind of atmosphere. And I'm not saying that globally, but generically speaking, as you go north, there's a lot more cattle in barns through the winter, eating grain all the time. And in the southern half of the United States, we have what God gives us. This grass is what we have available, and it's such a wonderful tool to use cattle to manage that grass into food and other byproducts. So I think it's pretty exciting to see the industry coming back to the idea of balance, of moderation, of a little slower paced production, and I think that'll be healthy for the industry and the lands obviously long term. So this is a herd of registered Beefmaster females, spring calvers. We use a 60-day breeding season, so everything in here was bred in May and June of last year. They're wrapping up calving now. We're calving February, March the following year. The running age cows, the bulk of the cows carry True Heart brand, which is our cousin Matt Brown, who died last year, and we leased this ranch from him prior to his death, and then bought his cow herd as he was kind of faced with that. Mixed in, any calves you see with tags are out of our first calf heifers. So we breed our first calf yearling heifers at 14 months to calve at 2, and then we calve those out so they're tagged, and we take birth weights on all the first calf heifers calves. And this ranch is set up in an intensive rotation. It's 1,865 acres split into 20 pastures, and we do a kind of a regenerative, intensive rotational grazing to the extent you can. This is pretty dry, brittle country, so it's not like we're moving every day, but especially during the growing season, they'd be in these pastures a week or less. But the beauty of it is then they get a long rest as we make the cycle through the other pastures. This place we're running right now about 25 acres to the animal unit, and because of moving the first calf heifers here, it's a little heavier than I would normally do it through the winter. In the summer, because of the effects of the rotational grazing, we could actually run a lot more cattle here, but we try and take everything on a year-round basis, like what we can carry through the winter successfully. Again, this country's pretty brittle, and if you overdo it, it'll bite you back. And so it really works best just to the old take half, leave half, but really kind of plan for winter. And if spring is good to you, and it's not always, then enjoy the fruits of that.
I'll add on that. This place, as he said, a little over 1,800 acres, but it's split up into 20 different pastures. So that really allows us to maximize our use of this place. And Todd, our foreman, who you'll hear from later, he's out here. We're in a pasture no longer than 7 days, and then some days he's every 3 days out here rotating to the next pasture. So that really allows us to give the land a break and get our cattle on fresh pasture. Big thing in the cattle industry, and really just the industry at large. A lot of families, it's really hard to keep an operation going for generations, and I'm the 6th generation now. So when Watt and I, my older brother, we would come together for family gatherings, holidays, that kind of stuff, and we would always ask my dad, what's your plan? He was well rooted in his role in leading our operation, but there wasn't much behind him. And I think part of us asking that was wariness that, one of us was going to be tossed in and not feeling prepared, kind of at the last second kind of thing. And the bigger concern was, who was going to lead the operation into the next generation. And so my brother was rooted in his company and doing well, and some things aligned in my life and with my wife and her pursuit in her career. And it just opened up where we could come home, and my dad offered that, and I jumped on it. I feel blessed to be working with him each day, and really a privilege to be a part of this industry. I think it's really spectacular what the cattle industry does at large, feeding this country and beyond. And I just see it as an honor to be a part of it.
My name's Todd Bannert. I've been here for I'm starting my 9th year, and I'm the ranch foreman here, and so I take care of the day-to-day needs of the ranch and the cattle. I don't guess there really was a story. I was looking, and I saw the ad in the paper, and I went and talked to Lorenzo, and we had a discussed some things, and I think we met back again another day or two later, and the rest is history. It worked out for both of us. He's going to give it a trial basis, of course, like anything would be, and it was a good fit for both of us. So it's been great. I love working here. I love working with the families. It's been the right decision for me. So.
What would you say is the toughest part of the job that not the everyday people see working on in a cattle operation?
I wouldn't necessarily call it tough, because I don't think anything's tough. There's just things take longer to do than other things, but I wouldn't call it tough at all. But for somebody outside looking in, they say, okay, you're raising cattle, they have their calves, and you tend to them, and grow them out. But behind the scenes end of it, calving is the busy time of year, and there's a lot that pertains to it. You just don't turn the cattle out and just let them have their calves. Like coming out here today, you got to go and look at every single calf. You got to look at every single cow, and to determine, cow may come up with strutted udders. Well, that means there's a problem with the calf. The calf ain't sucking, or she lost it. On top of that is calving out heifers. That's a lot of round-the-clock work, to determine when a heifer needs help and when she don't, because you try to let them have every opportunity they can to have it on their own, by all means. So you got to know when to intervene, and it could be at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, who knows? And so, and then once that's done, that's still not over with. Being a heifer, her first calf, sometimes they don't mother up. They won't accept their calf, so that's where the next phase starts, and you got to work with her for days or weeks to get them to do that. And so I would say, you know, it'd be the calving process that people don't see what goes on behind the scenes to raise a calf and to keep the herd healthy.
What do you enjoy most about the work?
Everything. I mean, just because, I mean, everything. It's every day's different. You know, you have your day planned, you're gonna do this, and sure enough, it changes real quick. And, you know, so, I mean, just everything about it.
I think in this business, you got to be able to roll with the punches. It's rare that you have a day, like Todd said, planned out and it all goes accordingly. You know, there's going to be something come up. There's going to be something that goes wrong, and you got to, Todd's great about having a great attitude and being solutions focused, and he's, you know, assess the problem, let's get a solution going and let's get it fixed and move on.
Well, so the two ranches we've been on today were both set up with rotational grazing in mind. So you can see that they're cross-fenced with electric fences. They're cut down into much smaller pastures. The cattle, once they get in the rhythm, love the rotation. They know they've got fresh grass ahead of them. The pastures love the rotation because they know they're going to get a rest period of months with hopefully some rain on it to regenerate. So we get a more complete grazing and then a more complete rest. In kind of the more traditional setups, like our headquarters place is 3,800 acres, but it's basically two big pastures. So the best we can do is flop back and forth. They don't get enough rest, and the pastures are so big that the cattle selectively graze. We can't force them to graze it all fairly evenly. And so in this scenario, bigger number of cattle in a smaller area, and it's by no means mob grazing and some of that, this country's too brittle for it, but we can definitely we don't try and carry more animals. We try and carry more animals more efficiently, or the same number of animals more efficiently. So these places will run a lot more than a traditionally managed ranch that we can't rotationally graze on, but the cattle will perform a lot better. You know, a lot better gains, a lot less inputs in terms of feed and you know, supplemental feeding that we have to do. Well, at its basic level, it's the same, right? It's managing grazing lands to raise a calf each year. But seedstock, we're in the genetics business, so we're raising calves to sell bulls and breeding females to people who want to improve the genetics in their own herds, whether that be going on to another registered Beefmaster herd, or whether people are crossing them on, you know, whatever type of commercial cows they have. So at a commercial level, your basic thing is to get them bred and get the calves to weigh as much as you can, kind of two super basic principles in that. In the genetics business, you've got to think about a whole lot more: carcass quality, longevity, calving ease, growth. All these different factors have to come into the mix, because people are relying on us to provide them bulls and females that can help move the needle in their herds, whether it be commercial or registered. As lessees, all these ranches are leased. We're kind of at the mercy of what our landlords are interested in doing. And we've had some. We did a bunch of fire on a place we had near Winters a few years ago. It was beat all blue stem, really lent itself, well, it needed to be burned, to be honest, from a quality standpoint. A lot of these places, the best tool we have is the rotational grazing. It really, like this place, a lot of the ranches we have are set up are old school big pastures. They're not set up for grazing. Not enough pastures to, you know, all we can do is kind of flop back and forth, that kind of thing. So this place has had some clearing done on it in the past, but again, because we're lessees, we might not be here next year. We can't invest a lot in anything that would be expensive. So our best tool is using the cattle to manage the soils and manage the grass.
Yeah, so we started, and this was kind of an idea my brother and I drummed up. You know, when we sit on an airplane with somebody or people we don't know and we get to talking about what we do and tell them about Beefmaster, they either haven't heard of it or the next question is, where can I get a Beefmaster steak? And for a while we didn't have a very good answer for that. And so this beef program we started about 2.5 years ago, direct consumer beef. You know, we're developing them out in Mertzen, and we get them processed in Mertzen, and we're selling, for about 2 years we were selling bulk, quarters, halves, and wholes. And then, 3 weeks ago, we started doing individual retail cuts out of our print shop. So that's been an awesome avenue. And I touched on it earlier, you know, the younger generation, and really any generation that's not directly involved with the agriculture industry, and kind of their lack of knowledge about what all we do. And specifically speaking to the younger generation, I've seen a trend, you know, a lot of my friends, Connor, you involved, really sparking an interest in wanting to know more about it. And I think that's been a big glimmer of hope in my eyes, is the younger generation wanting to know, where'd this animal come from? How was it treated? Who raised it? What went into it? And if I'm going to eat it, is it safe to eat? What all goes into it? Is it all natural? All those sorts of questions. So that's been a really cool part of it that I've enjoyed, kind of leading that project and getting beef into people's hands. And really my friends, they want to be involved. They want to have some part in that industry, and this has been a cool way to share that with them and getting beef on their table.
Well, I mean, everything has changed. The market is incredibly different now than it once was. When I was a kid, the Holy Grail was a $500 calf, and now it's 2,500 plus calves. But pricing, the cost of everything went up at the same time. Along with that, one of the biggest challenges we have locally, and it's not, or in Texas, and it's not something people are talking about, but it feeds into the Grazing Lands Coalition thing, is there's a lot of land that's been taken out of production for livestock production because of hunting and recreation, and nobody's talking about it. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a lot. So even in this area, which is super rural, it ought to have livestock on it. There's a lot of these ranches that do not anymore, or only do seasonally, or whatever it is, and that's really become a big challenge for us. We operate all on leased land, and so the ability to find leased land has really gotten difficult, so we're having to range out further. I think we're in 7 or 8 different counties right now, just trying to make it work.
Do you find that having leased land in different parts of Texas to be an advantage with what you have?
There is a slight advantage in some weather insurance, but I wish every morning that I had inherited a 10,000 acre ranch near San Angelo and didn't have to fight that battle of not knowing what next year brings, because we lose some, we gain some every year, but it seems like the overall footprint stays the same. I would much rather, all things being the same, would rather graze here. This land is so much better than anything as you go east, and this is no insult on that country, but I've run cattle in far east Texas, central Texas, all over the place, and just the quality of the ground here when it rains, and that's our challenge, is rain, is so good. The quality is so enormously better than as you go east.
Well, I see it in a couple different facets. One, kind of from a people perspective. Of course, I moved home about 3 years ago, my family and I, and joined Dad in the operation, and that's just been a huge blessing working with him and learning from him. And kind of touched on it earlier, my brother and I, when we were a little bit nervous and wary and asking him what his plan was, I think, we wanted to get one of us involved early on, so we had the time to learn and train and be a part of it. So that's been great. But I got 2 kids, and my dad's sister Isa and his partner in the business, she has 3 kids, so my 3 cousins. So I think from the people part of it is thinking about who else is going to step up and who's going to join the operation and help keep the legacy going. And then the other side, kind of operationally, as we've touched on, we're all leased land, spread out from all directions, coming from San Angelo. So from a kind of a security standpoint, we would like to get back into land ownership, and that's brutally hard, and that's something we kind of talk about at all times, and we're always looking for opportunities where we can do that. And a big goal of ours is to continue to grow the herd. And the ranch we were just at and purchasing Matt Brown's herd, that was a big step in growing the herd, but I think to sustain that, we need some security and land ownership. So that's a big part of it from an operational standpoint.
Our legacy is the cow herd. So we put all of our effort into the genetics of the cow herd. These ranches are a tool to manage them, but we might lose one next year. We might lose one in 5 years. We might get a new one this month. We never know that piece. So the sustainable piece, the piece that we can carry on from generation to generation, is the cattle. So what we hope is that somebody from the next generation, his kids or my nieces and nephews, will be able to step up and step into that role and carry that vision forward. Again, going back to the beginning of the story, my great-great-grandfather started ranching in Texas in the mid-1800s, and this has been a continually moving project. It became Beefmasters along the way, but we've all been kind of working in a similar direction. And so for somebody to be able to take that project and take it on through another generation can be very rewarding.
There's so many decisions to be made in this business, from what bulls we're going to select for our bull battery to which bulls we're putting on which herd. How long is our breeding season going to be? There's so many decisions that go into that. And I think, early on when I joined the business, I was doing so much learning. And so there wasn't a whole lot of, feedback from my point of view. I'm kind of learning from Dad and and understanding how he's operating. But as I've grown in my confidence and my understanding of what we do here, there's a whole lot of feedback, on all these decisions. You don't want a yes man in this business. If someone just all you hear is yes, you're going to go down the wrong path. You're not going to get, the different point of views that you need to make a fully educated, involved decision. So now that I'm more confident and feel empowered in my role here, we bicker about almost every decision there is, and I think that's a really good thing. It makes sure that whatever decision we move forward with and execute, it's one that's well thought out. We've played devil's advocate, and we've questioned and poked holes, and it's in the end it's going to be a solution that's serving to our goals and heading our herd in the right direction.
A goal that my dad has been working on for most of his career, and with my grandfather as well, was color. And so early on when Tom was developing this breed, having uniform color, like our cattle are 90% solid red, and that wasn't in the breed when he developed it. And I think the reason, and I'll let my dad speak to it as well, but the reason that he's kind of made that transition into going for solid red is the market demanded it. So my question would be to Tom is how those 6 essentials might change or modify in relation to the market and the changes and what the market is asking of producers.